Hi everybody, Mike Beer here with your DRF race of the day for this coming Wednesday, April 22nd. The race of the day is down at Tampa Bay Downs. We're going to close out that Wednesday card with race number 8. It's a turf sprint for 3-year-olds. They are non-winner of 1 allowance horses or an optional $75,000 claiming tag. Again, it's a relatively interesting field, if only because you have a lot of horses switching surfaces in here. Only 3 of the 10 entrants in this field have ever won a race on grass at this point, and several of these horses have never even tried the turf before. So there is going to be at least some guesswork going on in here. Let's take a look at the entry card for the field of 10. And you can see right off the bat there that number 8, Summer Assault, is your morning line favorite at 2-1. Won't be surprised if Summer Assault actually goes off at a shorter price than that. He is one of the horses with a prior win on the grass. That win did come at Tampa over this distance earlier in the meet when he was making his debut. Ran really well that day with a 78 buyer. He has been stakes placed on the grass since then. He's cutting back in distance for this, but his overall form, there are some interesting horses in here who are lightly raced and could improve, but his overall form at this point, it just sort of towers over this field. He's going to be a very short price in here. Let's take a look at the time form, U.S. pace projector for the race before we move on. It has the number 3 out there, making a clear early lead. The 3 is Sea Lover. He's one of the horses switching surfaces here. He's going to make his turf debut in this race. He did win first time out against maiden claimers on the dirt back at the end of March. So, he did show speed that day. He looked pretty good winning that race. It was sort of a speed favoring track. I do expect him to show speed in this race, but he's going to have to improve in his turf debut if he's going to beat this field. Perhaps getting loose on the lead, as the pace projector suggests, is a possibility, could help his chances in this race. Let's just sort of run through some of the contenders in here. The 1 Disco Dino is one of several horses in here, not only switching to turf for the first time, but returning from layoffs in this race. There are a bunch of horses who are making their first start after spending quite a bit of time on the sidelines. That's just another advantage for Summer Assault, the favorite in here, who has recency on these horses. Disco Dino, listen, he got crushed by Tiz the Law in his career debut at Saratoga. He bounced out of that race to blow away maidens at Finger Lakes on the dirt. He won that race by over 10 lengths. And, after that, they tried a couple of stakes with him. He hasn't won since that second career start, but he's run okay. He's going to switch to turf here. He is by a decent turf sire in Verrazano. There's not a lot of turf on the bottom of his pedigree. I think you do have to worry about the layoff a little bit here as he tries turf for the first time, but he has been training forwardly down here over the last month or so, and it does look like he has some ability here. I wouldn't totally dismiss this horse. He also looks like he has a little bit of speed, so if he comes back and breaks running from the rail, I think he could get forward in this race, and I wouldn't be surprised if he took a little step forward in this race. The number 2 is Baby Boomer, the number 3 is Sea Lover, and the number 4 is Cliffy. And all 3 of these horses have something in common in that they've all only made 1 start so far, all of them down here at Tampa. All of those races were sprinting on the dirt, and they were all versus maiden claiming competition. And all 3 of those horses won their respective debuts. I didn't think it was necessarily that easy to separate them. Sea Lover, of course, did show good speed when he won his race with a 60 buyer speed figure. That was a day at Tampa, March 29th. Only 4 dirt races on that card, all of them sort of dominated by horses who were able to get up close, on or near the early lead. That might have helped Sea Lover. I still thought he looked good winning that race, especially when you consider that he just didn't take really a lot of money. He was sort of overlooked in that race, going off at 18-1, but he won that race very easily. It was pretty impressive. He's by Midshipman, who was a solid turf sire. He wins with about 13% of his first-time turf runners. There's not a lot of turf on the bottom of this pedigree, and that's a concern. So we'll see how he handles the surface switch. The 4 Cliffy is by Revolutionary. He's not a horse who's had a lot of success with his turf runners to date, and there really isn't that much turf on the bottom. He's another horse who ran really well first time out to break his maiden, but it was against $16,000 claimers on the dirt. And he only got a 55 buyer for that win. He does switch to the leading rider, Gallardo, for this. Maybe that's a good sign. Mike Dinney does a very good job, his trainer. So we'll see if this horse can take a step forward on turf. He's going to have to do that. The number 5 is Uncle Bud. He's a horse who debuted over this distance on turf back in January. He was in the Summer Assault race, and he just really was no factor in there. He got a decent trip in there. He just never really made any kind of a move. He was on his wrong lead all through the stretch and just sort of finishing evenly. He was no factor at all. However, he's improved in his 2 starts since then. Now, those 2 starts have come on dirt, but he's really improved in those races. He's shown more speed in those races. He broke his maiden last time out against maiden special weight rivals, and He looked really good winning that race. He was a much the best winner in there. Traveled strongly through the turn, took that race over, and went clear at the end. A 63 Beyer speed figure. It was another step in the right direction for him. He's by Uncle Mo. You know, the Uncle Mo's can really do anything. There is turf on the bottom of this pedigree. He is really bred to handle this surface. So he's just one of those sorts. So I think it, does he have to improve? Yes, but I think it might be wise to give him one more chance on turf because he's clearly improved since his career debut. I think he could do a lot better in this race as his trainer Timothy Ham comes back to grass with him for the first time since January. The 6 is Riverhawk. He is one of the 3 horses in this field who already has a win on turf. That came in his career debut last August as a 2-year-old at Laurel. We'll look at a replay of that race right now. This is for a maiden $25,000 tag. Listen, he had speed in that race. He kept right up there, pressing the horse who finished his second in the race, Sidecar, who was the 7-5 favorite in the field. Sidecar's not really much horse. He did return to win his next start, but that was with a class drop on dirt. So he's just really not that good. Riverhawk, you saw it, contested the pace with that horse for a long way and just sort of edged away in the final 1/8 of a mile or so. He won it clear at the end. The Beyer only came back a 43. I think you want to put a line through his only other start as a 2-year-old. They took him to Saratoga, ran him in the Skidmore against a way better field. He was no match for those horses. It's been 250 days since we've seen this horse. He is certainly eligible to improve now as a 3-year-old. He has blinkers on for a very good trainer in Ned Allard. I think he can improve. He is going to have to if he's going to win this race. The 7 and the 9, 2 horses that bookend the favorite in this race. Let's take a look at them first. Stuck Up and Kid Russell. They both have wins as 2-year-olds at Presque Isle over the synthetic track. Stuck Up won his career debut there with a 54 Beyer. Didn't break that great in that race, but he had really good speed. He got up to the lead. He took on a challenge through the turn, and he was very game, just holding his advantage all through the turn, all through the stretch. I like the way that he held off the closers in that race. It was actually a pretty nice performance. His second career start came on dirt at Finger Lakes. He finished behind Disco Dino that day. Listen, he's making his 3-year-old debut. He's got turf in his pedigree by Mr. Sydney out of a silent name mare. I can see this horse handling turf and taking a step forward in here. He's going to have to do it off of a long layoff, 172 days since we've last seen him. And Kid Russell, kind of in the same boat. He ran really well, I thought, in both of his starts last year as a 2-year-old at Presque Isle over synthetic. He won his career debut. He came right back in a stakes race there at Presque Isle and finished second with a 66 Beyer. He ran well in both of those races. He's off nearly 200 days since we've last seen this horse, so he's got a layoff to overcome. He's going to have to switch to turf. And as opposed to a horse like Stuck Up, he doesn't really have that much of a turf pedigree. Gone Astray wins with about 6% of his first-time turf runners. This dam is only one prior foal, who hasn't really done anything, and the dam herself didn't really do anything on turf in her career. She only tried it, didn't try it at all, actually. He went 3 for 26 in her career. She wasn't that good. He's got form. Just don't know if he's a turf horse or not. But if he takes a step forward off his 2-year-old form, he could really make an impact on this race. The 10 is a long shot, 1 for 13. He is one of the horses in here with a prior win on the grass. But he's been racing against cheaper horses, and he's got 13 starts already, and he's really never run a race that's going to be fast enough to beat this field. That it just feels like, we put the picks up there now. I'm just not going to try and beat Summer Assault in this race. He sort of towers over this field. He's going to have to cut back after finishing 3rd in the Columbia last time. But he actually ran well in that race. He looked really good winning his career debut over this course and distance, and he just sort of stands out on form in this race. He's going to be a short price in here, but I just couldn't find any way to really pick against this horse, and I'm not going to try and beat him in here. I put Summer Assault on top. I went 8, 9, 3, and 7 in your DRF race of the day for Wednesday. It's the 8th at Tampa Bay Downs, and the approximate post time is 4 o'clock Eastern time. Good luck.